Yo, 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 yo. What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
How the hell are you?
Doing all right. How
Doing
are
all
you?
right? Are you feeling better?
Getting there.
There you go. There you go. I love it. Have you ever been hopefully you're smoking some big fat doinks while you're listening to the show. And Mrs. Weedman and I are about to get normal. And we are smoking some Drunk Rider, grown by our friend Big Earl. Mrs. Weedman, go ahead and light that bowl up because we need to get normal. And I don't really know much about this strain, just that Big Earl gave me some, and we really like it, so I wanted to smoke it for the show. And it's got a good high. We smoked a big fat joint of it the day I got it on Sunday and last Sunday, and it was fantastic. So good flavor, good taste, great mellow high. Big Earl, well done as usual. And yesterday was Big Earl and I's the Grow Hour 1 year anniversary too. So make sure you check out that episode. It was a fun, just kind of like a burp in the bag episode that Big Earl and I did, and just shot the shit a little bit and talked the talk and gave a lot of thanks and shout outs to everybody. Miss Weedman, you doing okay over there with that bowl? Mm-hmm. You need a triple hit?
Yeah, I do. I'm far from normal.
Smells fantastic, by the way. Yeah. And we are smoking out of an 8 Decades bowl. And go ahead and pass that bowl over here.
I suppose I could give it to you.
While Mrs. Weedman talks about what we did on Sunday and what band we went and saw, one of her faves. Who'd we go see, Mrs. Weedman?
Finally, I think I've been listening to them since like the mid 1990s.
I would say like 92, 93, maybe? 94?
Yeah, around the time our kids were born, mid 90s, yeah. And I've never seen them in concert. So Cake announced they were coming to the Salt Shed, which is where our daughter, O-Dog, works. And she's a bartender there. It's a great new venue in Chicago, music venue. And so we all grabbed tickets. It was my sister, a couple of my nieces, me and Mr. Weedman, and we packed ourselves up the other night and headed down to the show. It was highly anticipated by all of us because everybody who went for a reason, right? And I have never seen them perform, ever. I don't even know if they've ever been on tour. Maybe they were when they were really hot, like in the early 2000s, late 1990s, possibly, but I had small kids, so maybe I just wasn't into or didn't care at the time. Anyway, this was the first time that I saw them, and I was highly anticipating it. And
you were highly.
I was really high. We all were. And it was a little weird, I just have to say. I thought maybe because Salt Shed does have kind of a vibe about it, like the genre of music that performs there is kind of indie and, funky. And so I thought maybe they're going to do like an acoustic set or like more of like a groove set, but they're still going to play their familiar songs. Well, they played a lot of their familiar songs, but it was like they down-tempoed everything. Everything was just like slower. And then it was like he was singing, like you had, for me anyway, I had to listen and then be like, wait a minute, I do know this song.
I think he was
music
off.
He was off.
I was talking to Mr.
Weird.
G about it. It just sounded like he was off by like a hair
behind the music.
Yes, like he was off, not off tune, off by a second of the
beat.
And like, the songs because you've had the CDs in your car back when our kids were little. And those CDs were on constantly. Like the kids were excited that we were going, and nieces wanted to come because they always remembered you playing it in the cars, constantly, and all of you all singing the song. It was always on. I mean, forever. So, I mean, those songs to the teen. All of a sudden, I'm looking at him like he does sound like he's a second behind.
Yeah, there were just times where it was just off. And then he got off on a couple banters. Like, he was really, he's probably our age, right? At least, absolutely. Right? And he's got to be at least in his 50s. And, you go through the shit in life, right? And you get in your 50s and you're either wiser or you're, like, just fed up with shit and you don't care, right? I think he has gotten a little wiser, maybe, in the way that he was speaking. Kind of, he sounded a little bit enlightened. And so maybe he was just at a different level. I think he might have been under the influence of something.
I know he was buzzed up. He had to be. He was drinking beers on stage.
Beers and maybe he smoked some weed before. He was just kind of in his own little world. And he got off on a couple tangents sometimes, and it was like, "Yo, come back."
They gave away a tree.
Yeah, he gave away a tree, but the person had to be a steward to the tree for life and commit to giving them photos every couple of years, which would be really cool because you'd have like firsthand kind of communication with the band, maybe, or probably through their social media, but kind of fun, right? But then it just kind of went off into like a tangent. It was just weird. It was a weird show. I came out kind of feeling a little deflated, like when we saw Snoop Dogg the first time. It was like, man, what happened?
Right.
And then he redeemed himself. So Cake will redeem themselves, I'm sure. But I'll say, like in these last couple, like since the concert, I keep finding myself singing the songs again. So
you were singing them like crazy. Yeah,
I can't stop singing.
I didn't say the concert was bad.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It was
bad.
just a little different concert.
I thought it was going to be a little bit like more energetic and like I thought they were going to be spazzes on stage.
No,
I didn't know what to expect.
I mean, I love the disco ball they had in the center.
Yeah,
that was
they
a
had a
big giant disco
great.
ball. I really liked them. Mm-hmm. I thought what they did was really cool. There was no opening band. They did 2 sets. They did what, like I would say, like a 90-minute set. Took a 15-minute break.
Yep.
Everybody got a pee break, smoke break, weed smoke break, beer break. And then they came back on and did another set. And then they stayed on for like 4 or 5 more songs for their encore. And we were going to the bathroom. Next thing you know, I was ready to go to the bathroom. And I heard War Pigs by Black Sabbath.
Yes,
and I came flying
running
out of the building and didn't even go to the bathroom. And I was just going nuts. Because it's like, I'm a Black Sabbath connoisseur. And I mean, that song, I hear it no matter who sings it, I'm going to be dancing. And I was. It was amazing. So that made my night. To me, I like all their songs, but that was the best song of the night.
It wasn't even their song.
It wasn't even their song. Oh, shoot. Well, it was fun. So, and then we're watching Suits. Crazy stuff, season 2. Crazy stuff going on right now. So if you haven't watched that show, I suggest you watch it. So good stuff there. And yeah, I'm ready to get the show started. Are you, Mrs. Weedman?
I'm ready.
Let's
get started.
Do this.
Oh, I was going to mention one other thing that happened this week. I still wasn't feeling well. And this is like a little personal experience, cannabis as medicine. And so hear me, because it was really impactful. I had appointments. I had work on Saturday. It started off as a day, I'm a realtor by day. My days are ever changing. And so leading up to the weekend, I was like, yes, I have Saturday off. I can't say off. I'm always doing something for work. But I didn't have any physical appointments. I was like, I can sleep in, stay in my comfy clothes, have some coffee on the patio, like just have a chill morning. And it wasn't going to go that way. I wasn't feeling good. I'm like, I probably should go to the doctor at this point. And I've got appointments now. So So my day was a little bit wacky, like lots of moving parts. And so it was late in the day by the time I was finally able to go to an urgent care. It was a Saturday. I couldn't get into my doctor. And so I go to a new urgent care that's affiliated with the hospital where I get my care for my health condition. And thinking, they've got me on file. This will be a smooth boom, boom, boom. I'll be out in 40 minutes, right? Saturday, it's beautiful out. No one wants to be in here. So I get checked in, they triage me, I come out of triage, and they have me sit at the registration desk, and I'm like, that's weird. They have all of my information. I already, checked in at this little kiosk. And she asked me to sign this document, that there's no physical document, and there's no screen. I'm like, well, you're asking me to sign something. I'd really like to know what I'm signing. She goes, there's a binder hanging on the wall next to you. The papers are in there. Like, you'll be signing page number 5. And I'm like, how? That's a piece of paper. You've got a computer screen. You're asking me to sign just a signature pad. How do I know what I'm really signing? Anyway, long story short, she then says, just so you know, we bill as an emergency room. I'm like, why? And she goes, because we're an ER. I'm like, you're an ER? What are you talking about? This is an urgent care. And she goes, no, we're technically an ER. Now, this looks like an urgent care. It's like a office building of doctor's offices, and then this one space for urgent care. No, we are an ER, and we bill as such. And I was like, they had already put me through triage and took a COVID test, and without my, I guess I gave consent. And then they did a throat swab for strep because I had a sore throat all week. And and so I'm already, effectively, I have to pay for something, right? So I'm sitting now for another hour after triage, and I go back up, and I'm like, this is really bothering me. You're going to bill me as an emergency room. I have probably a cold. I'm pretty confident I have a cold. I'm not one of those people that abuses an ER and goes to the ER for a cold. This is silly. And I'm going to be here all day long because I'm not important. They don't need to see me. There's bigger fish to fry. So there's no signage anywhere that says that this is an ER. I was so now I'm starting to get like kind of stressed because I feel like I can't leave because I've already initiated services without knowing that this was an ER, and I've already kind of tried to talk my way through the front desk. Like, do I have to pay for these things? Well, yeah, we're going to bill you. Well, great. Okay, not a big deal. So I'm just kind of like working myself up, and I don't know. I felt like I didn't have a choice. I think that was my problem. I felt frustrated that I was kind of backed into a corner, that now I was going to be here at their mercy for hours, right? It was already going on 2 hours. And so they finally get me into a room, and then the nurse comes and leaves, and and now I know there's only one doctor there. There's a bunch of people in front of me. You're kind of paying attention to who got there before you, how many people have got it. So I have worked myself up completely. In my head, I am so angry that I made this dumb decision to stay there, and I should have read between the lines online when I looked at about the place to go there. Anyway, I'm just like going through all these scenarios in my head and just getting myself so freaking anxious. Finally, I'm like, I'm just leaving. I just have to leave. So I open the door, and the nurse is looking at me because the nurse's station is right outside the door. And I'm like, I just have to leave. And she's like, what? I'm like, my anxiety is just I just can't. I just have to leave. So she looks at the doctor who's sitting there, and I swear to gosh, he had like a clipper, like a hair clippers in his hand, and he's just sitting at the desk. So I opened the door, and I just decided I was leaving. And the nurse's station was right there, and the nurse was, trying to help, and what's wrong? And I just said, I'm at my max. I've lost my patience, and I'm feeling really anxious. My anxiety is like over the top, and I really just need to go home. So she like looks at the doctor that's sitting there, like, I don't even know what he was doing. And she says, can you just take care of her? And I said, no, I'm not trying to get preferential treatment. That's not what I'm looking for. I really need to leave. And she's like, oh, okay. So I left. I've never done something like that. And then I'm in my car, and I'm just so mad. I was so so mad that 2 hours of my time got wasted, that I'm going to have this another stupid medical bill, and that this one was going to be, an ER visit to get two throat swabs, or a nose swab and a throat swab. It's just dumb. And I was mad at myself. I was mad at the place. I was mad at this blah, 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 blah. And I just worked myself up. So I got home, Mr. Weedman. Oh, and one thing I did, I pulled out, and it was kind of like forest preserve just beyond the office. And I rolled down the windows, and I screamed, "Fuck!" as loud as I could. That was really great, but it didn't help my throat. I came home, and I'm like, man alive. I just had I don't even know what's wrong with me right now. I didn't lose my shit. Nobody else would have known that I was stressed out at all. Like, body language was fine. My demeanor was fine. My brain was not fine. I'm like, I hated that feeling. And I felt like I couldn't get myself back in control of myself. I couldn't talk myself out of feeling the way I was. I'm like, I think I just need to smoke and just chill. And so I came downstairs, and I hit, there was a joint that was a blunt that was sitting in the ashtray, half smoked. And I puffed off on that a few times, and I could just literally feel the release. And within probably 30 minutes, I was back to normal. And so I'm just saying the medicinal value of cannabis right there for me was solidified, because I don't take a medication. I don't have extreme anxiety, but I know those those lead-in feelings, right? And look at that. It helped. It tuned me down. It calmed me. I was done with this rapid thinking. It wasn't firing off and working me up in my brain anymore. I could decompress. I could just stop and just be over, done, whatever. It's so stupid. What are you even getting worked up for? So, hoorah for weed, because it really does
cannabis.
wonders.
Yay,
Okay,
cannabis.
that's it. Sorry. Long-winded. Yeah, leave it to me. Long-winded. I should have a nickname, something along that line. Like,
You don't have a nickname either, so.
it would have to be a long nickname. With a story, right? Go ahead, Mr. Weedman.
You ever wonder how dispensaries protect their stash? And I'm not only talking about their weed stash, I'm talking about their cash stash. And also protecting their customers that come in their stores, because there's been a lot of robberies, especially on the West Coast. Cannabis dispensaries have been getting robbed more and more lately, too. So just for a moment, let's just say you were of the mind to rob a store. An old-fashioned stick-up, perhaps. Maybe a smash and grab. Even before you start shopping for silencers, duffel bags, and fake mustache, you'd probably scope out the perfect target. A shop load of extremely valuable merchandise. Or one with fat cash. Of course, the ideal would be a shop featuring both, which is exactly what makes your humble neighborhood cannabis dispensary such an extraordinary mark. Much of this is due to the fact that under federal law, cannabis remains illegal, and credit card companies aren't willing to risk the Fed's wrath by touching marijuana money. This forces dispensaries to join the lion's share of their business in cash. Meanwhile, flitched flower can be conveniently resold in the black market and nearby dry counties or states. How much cash and cannabis do dispensaries keep on hand? That depends on the location, foot traffic, what concerts in town, store size, time of the year, etc., etc. But for large shops, some industry experts have said to this journalist of cash could easily be sit between 100,000, 200,000, plus much more, and then also the cost of all the product as well. In other words, hardly an Ocean's 11 haul, but not a bad day's work either. Of course, for a small mom-and-pop dispensary, a loss like that could be a death blow. Weed store robbery numbers aren't easy to come by. The cops could give a shit. One store owner told the journalist, former director of Craft Cannabis Coalition, shared some self-reported statistics gathered by dispensaries in Washington state, indicating that in 2022, there were 102 armed robberies and burglaries. If you're mathing that at home, that's one every 3.6 days. Give the high stakes. How exactly do dispensaries keep their cash, merch, customers, and staff are safe? It ain't easy. For starters, some city ordinances often determine where shops can and can't be located, which sometimes regulates a store to sketchy-ass neighborhoods or spots that turn ghost towns at night. Likewise, some states explicitly prevent dispensary owners from keeping weapons on premise, which of course the bad guys are likely wise too. While every dispensary must adhere to the mountain of state-ordinated security regulations, Massachusetts, for instance, requires that product can't be viewed from the street without the use of binoculars, optical aids, or craft. Here in Illinois, there is no live product on the shelves in the stores. Everything is in a vault, and you see armed security people at the stores. I've walked into dispensaries with San Quentin levels of security, barred windows, beefy cameras, plexiglass barriers, buzz you in, buzz you out. And I've also seen my share of airy spa-like boutiques with polished wood, pink orchids, and cute as of bud tenders. But to make no mistake, all dispensaries are required to be camered up. So just because you can't spot the video surveillance doesn't mean you're not on candid camera. In fact, every spot in the store where a cannabis transaction occurs, counters, registers, and where the product is touched, like the back room, must be filmed from multiple angles. With 186 stores in 11 states, TrueLeave is one of the largest multi-state operators in the country. The chief technology officer oversees, among other things, all technical aspects of dispensary security. TrueLeave cameras monitoring all transaction points as well as entrances and exits, the parking lot, and the back of the store, not to mention its delivery trucks, which are outfitted with both cameras and GPS trackers. Between 30 and 40 people actively monitor the camera systems 24/7. There's an artificial intelligence that might, for instance, pick up if a particular lobby is getting a little too crowded. Panic buttons direct dial both security and law enforcement. Staffers arriving early or leaving late can call TrueLeaf Security Center to ask if the coast is clear outside the shop and can be in contact with the center as they walk to their car. That's actually really cool. Mm-hmm. Steve Weiner, who owns Bighorn Weed Company, a super popular independent dispensary in Taos, New Mexico, knows something about security. For 6 years, he served as an officer on nuclear submarines in the U.S. Navy, including a stint of Seawolf fast attack sub in the Arctic. I had top secret security clearance and access to sensitive information. And that experience informs how much this business I found that intriguing business. Bighorn is the most laid-back, low-key weed establishment I've ever set foot in. Exactly 0 products sit behind glass. The counter itself is small and doesn't create a barrier to staff or the back room. The cameras are hard to spot. Oh, and there's an upright piano that looks like it was dragged straight from a saloon. Wiener's approach to security is holistic, psychological, and strategic. Even though it is very high dollar value per square inch, we're intentionally not signaling that this is a jewelry store, he says. It's really no different than if you walked into a nice wine shop in Sonoma County. You wouldn't see bottles behind glass. Part of his strategy also relies on Navy-style compartmentalization. Only a fraction of his flour, pre-rolls, and edibles is kept in the front of the store. The rest is accessed the way of increasingly secured rooms that employees need a unique punch code to access. Only Wiener has access to the innermost sanctum, though. There's, of course, another way into a dispensary's innermost sanctum. Ram your car straight through a wall, something like folks at Deep Sentinel, a Pleasantville, California-based security company I've seen more often than you'd think. I've seen a lot of that, too. I follow some people from California, and you see the break-ins and just cars just running right through dispensaries. It's nuts. They said most break-ins, they tell me, happen the old-fashioned way, with a crowbar to the front and back door. AI-assisted cameras pick up suspicious characters, though. It takes less than 20 seconds for a guard in an off-site control room to assess the situation. Hit the siren through a speaker, tell the no good nicks to bugger off, but the company is working on another line of defense, still in beta and expected to launch later this summer or next year. An in-store drop from the ceiling smoked... really? An in-store drop from the ceiling smoke deterrent, essentially a smoke bomb that when triggered by an off-site guard makes it near impossible to see and even harder to toss jars or crunchberry kush into a duffel bag. I bet you eventually there'll be like those flash grenades too, that totally stun grenades and stuff.
Yep.
I'm sure there'll be that kind of stuff too. Obviously, the fat stacks of cash on hand is what's inspiring the cramming and stick-ups, which is why cannabis community has been pushing Congress to pass the Safe Banking Act, which could allow dispensary customers to, yes, use credit cards to purchase weed. Some dispensaries allow the use of Dutchy Pay or Can Pay, cannabis-specific cashless payment apps. Some take debit cards, typically with a $3 fee. But as long as cash is still king, crowbars will be prying the place of the doors. Be careful out there, everybody. It is a cash business. There's a lot of money taking place. Protect your employees, protect your cash, protect your grow, protect your inventory. Just be careful out there. So it's not always safe. So I talk about doinks all the time. What is a proper doink, Mrs. Weedman, and the art of the roll?
Yes, this is some smoking etiquette for serious stoners. To discover the optimal way to smoke the world's best weed, the team of iron lungs behind Proper Doinks worked their way backward. After rolling up the same selections side by side, the cannabis wasn't always revealing its best expression. To uncover why, they broke down the smoking process step by step. Embedded in the California cannabis scene, Adam Payne and Paul Christman already had access to incredible weed. But was the key to an impeccable puff in the grind? The tightness of the roll, the way a joint is hit and ashed? Proper Doinks offers an answer to an important cultural question of our time. How do we achieve the perfect high? To tell the tale, I'll start from the ending and work my way backward. Payne, Chrisman, and I have finished our interview, and the still smoking doink is sitting on the table upright, twisting smoke upward like an incense cone. We've been smoking that singular doink for the entirety of our 40-minute conversation, held within the comfortable confines of the Chronic Culture Lounge in San Francisco, and I am absolutely blitzed. We haven't been discussing what we've been smoking. Instead, we've been discussing how we've been smoking. Not what, but how. A doink is an eighth and up, Payne explains. Roll up an eighth or higher, that's a doink. If it's over 5 grams, then it's a thoink, Chrisman says. You know, you got to put the tongue between the teeth when you say it. Thoink.
Thoink.
Thoink. In the Proper Doink's philosophy, judging the quality of cannabis flower all comes down to 2 categories, flavor and smoothness. When smoking a doink, grab it by the glass tip, take quick, strong hits, and never ash. Within flavor, there's an assessment of flavor accuracy, or a judgment of whether a strain's smell matches its taste. The Proper Doinks team asks if there are secondary notes within the flavor. Can you taste the flower, or does it taste like burning? What's the strength of the taste? Is it a flavor that comes and goes that you have to look for, or can you taste it 20 minutes later? Payne asks. Is it like juice, or like thick syrup, or like watered down juice that's like there but not slapping you in the face? He asks. In terms of smoothness, is the smoke hollow and empty, tinged with harsh tar and ash, or is it thick, soothing, and medicinal? The idea behind Proper Doinks was to be able to say what the best weed is. We realized that we couldn't quite say what the best weed is until we locked down the best way to consume it as a constant variable, Payne says. There's so much user error that can stop there's so much user error that can stop someone from experiencing the full potential of a flower. The idea is that by consuming the exact same doink every time, the weed can be appropriately assessed and valued. Payne and Chrisman met through work at a Sacramento headquarters of Connected Cannabis. After establishing an online rapport through Instagram, they learned that they lived 12 houses down from each other in Fairfield, roughly an hour south of Sacramento. By 2018, that close proximity and shared interest in smoking elite strains fueled a friendship that allowed them to get together often and roll up joints side by side. We went on this tear of finding the best weed in the world and perfecting the art of the doink, Payne says. They believe a doink is the best way to appreciate the taste of weed, and their strategy follows techniques cigar aficionados would recognize. Doink smokers should not draw in a hit for too long, an action that can overheat the cherry and make the smoke taste like char. Also, doink smokers should not ash. Keeping the ash insulates the heat, and knocking it off can cause the doink to burn hotter, which affects the taste. When they started rolling the weed together the same way, and then they found When they started rolling the same weed together and found differences due to the roll, they started experimenting with the grind, which is fine and compacted for the doinks to be able to burn consistently and slow. While demonstrating the art of rolling a doink during our interview, Payne meticulously picks out the stems and any unsmooth sugar leaves. A proper doink will always have a glass tip, which prevents things that can sour the smoking experience, such as a resinous oil on the lips or Scooby snacks. The idea behind the glass tip is that the holes inside create drag that slows the burn and stops the cherry from getting too hot and burning the flower's terpenes. To get to a proper doink, Payne and Christman broke down the steps applied toward rolling up. The battles were on. They did short joints versus longer joints, skinny joints versus thick joints, a looser versus a tighter roll. We would do each scenario 10 to 30 times in a row until there was just absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt no other option, Payne says. The joints that they smoke take 25 to 30 minutes to roll and burn for at least half an hour. At our smoke sesh, I followed their instructions by turning the doink in my hand, ensuring an even burn, and hitting it as if I was blowing smokos, a strategy to cool the smoke in the mouth before it's inhaled. Short, strong hits with a small rotation in between. It's the same thing with cigars, Payne says of the Proper Doinks technique, so it's perfectly burning with no long runs or long spots. Payne and Chrisman focus on the flower's interaction with the palate. The fact that the weed is good and will get them high is a given. To share the experience of judging the cannabis they smoke, they started a review account on Instagram. When we started trying to find the best weed, people started selling us really expensive weed. We don't bargain for art, and boutique weed, we believe, is art. So you name a price and we'll pay it if you're saying it's the best, Payne says. Noting that they have ruffled feathers in the cannabis industry by calling out strains they think are subpar. We started getting a really deep connection with a lot of consumers just from telling the raw truth. Chrisman approaches cannabis from a consumer perspective and represents consumers who are living paycheck to paycheck but will splurge on a $450 ounce. You can't take it back. There's no refunds in this industry, he says. It is what it is. You're stuck with it until your next paycheck. They respect our honesty because they want to know where to spend their money wisely. One of the connoisseur topics they often dive into online is the controversial topic of white ash. We just talked about this. Heady smokers argue about whether or not white ash denotes quality cannabis. The topic of white ash touches upon a widely adopted growing step called flushing, where cultivators flush a plant of nutrients and provide only water in the last week or two before harvest. The idea behind white ash in cannabis is that it occurs when a plant has been properly flushed, dried, and cured. Many within cannabis culture will argue white or black ash doesn't signify anything pertaining to quality. In cigar culture, white ash has come to be known as a signifier that the tobacco was grown in nutrient-rich soil. Tobacco is also deprived of nutrients when it begins to flower. Payne believes flushing is not the cause of white ash and actually makes the smoke worse. He weighs in on the white ash topic in the same sort of hushed tone you'd hear when someone tells a spooky story around a campfire. Quote, "There's good, there's great, there's excellent, and then there's just the unicorn batches. Unreal, they're unearthly," he says. "We generally smoke great weed all the time, and once or twice a year, we'll come up on a batch of something that was just excellent. And then, every couple of years, there will be a unicorn. When we notice every single box has been checked, it's been perfect to the glass, not losing any quality, the ash just so happens to be bone white and solid structure. And it's a very specific type of whiteness and a specific type of structure. It's like a sandcastle smooth structure. The merits," that was a quote, "the merits of the optimal way to grow and consume cannabis, the elements that make certain strains stand above the rest, will be debated endlessly. But the team behind Proper Doinks has put in hours to defend their brand and smoking philosophy. They've developed a standard to fit the world's weed, and they can't stop now. After all, once you've hunted and found unicorns, there's no turning back."
Unicorns.
Unicorns.
35 years ago, a judge said marijuana did not belong on Schedule 1, and the HHS is finally agrees. In 1998, case highlighted the DA's stubborn insistence that marijuana has no accepted medical use, as Mrs. Weedman just talked in her story before we started reading. What'd you say?
It was medicine.
Medicine. The Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, last week or a couple weeks ago, recommended that the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, move marijuana from Schedule 1 to the Controlled Substance Act, the law's most restricted category, to a 3, which includes prescription drugs such as anabolic steroids, Tylenol, and codeine. 35 years ago, today, Francis Young, the DA's chief administrative law judge, likewise concluded that marijuana did not belong in the Schedule 1, which also includes illegal drugs such as heroin, LSD, psilocybin, and MDMA. Although Young's conclusion ultimately were rejected by the DEA Administrator John Lawn, his decision was a milestone in marijuana reform that highlighted the irrationality of the drug's legal classification. It is worth another look now that the DEA, in response to the HHS recommendation, may finally acknowledge after half of a century a steadfast resistance. Marijuana does not meet the statutory criteria for Schedule 1. Young's 1988 ruling came after 16 years of litigation that demonstrated how determined the DA was to maintain the total prohibition of marijuana, no matter what the relevant evidence showed. In 1972, the National Organization of Reform of Marijuana Laws, NORML, the two other groups petitioned the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, BNDD, the DEA's predecessor agency, asking it to move marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 5, the least restrictive category, or deschedule it entirely. The BNDD initially refused to even consider the petition, claiming it would violate the Single Convention of Narcotic Drugs. Even if it might be true, the U.S. Court of Appeals for D.C. Circuit ruled in 1974, the point is not obvious or clear-cut, but requires a reflective consideration and analysis. The appeals court said that the BNDD's position should have been reflected in an action denying the petition on the metrics. As the D.C. Circuit saw it, the agency's shortcut was inconsistent with the kind of interchange and refinement of views that is the lifeblood of a sound administrative process. On remand, Young noted the DA held a 3-day hearing, after which an administrative law judge found in NORML's favor on several issues, but the agency's acting administrator entered a final order denying NORML petition in all respects. Normal again appealed to the D.C. Circuit, which in 1977 told the DEA to try again. The appeals court questioned the DA's interpretation of the Controlled Substance Act and ordered to seek a review of marijuana's classification from the Department of Health Education and Welfare, now HHS. Then followed the rulemaking process required by the statute. In 1979, the department concluded that marijuana should stay in Schedule 1, and 10 days later, without any further proceedings, the DEA again rejected Normal's position. Normal once again asked the D.C. Circuit Court to intervene. In an unpublished 1980 order, the appeals court said that reconsideration of all the issues in this case would be appropriate, and again remanded that the matter to the DEA. So after 3 rebukes by the D.C. Circuit and another HHS review, the final case landed in front of Young in 1986, 14 years after the original petition. At this point, the issue had been narrowed to whether marijuana should be moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2, which includes many prescription opioids, along with cocaine, amphetamines, Ritalin, and some barbiturates. In making that judgment, Young focused on Schedule 1 criteria. The substance has no currently accepted medical use and treatment in the United States and lacks accepted safety for use under medical supervision. Based mainly on doctors' practices and opinions along with patients' experiences, Young concluded that marijuana did have currently accepted medical use as a treatment for nausea and vomiting caused by cancer chemotherapy. The Food and Drug Administration, FDA, had implicitly recognized that fact in 1985 when approved Marinol, a synthetic version of THC, marijuana main active ingredient, as an antiemetic. But as Young noted, smoked marijuana had several advantages over Marinol. It did not require swallowing a capsule and keeping it down, an obvious challenge for people who are nauseated and vomiting. It did not entail metabolism or THC through the liver, which some patients found produced unpleasant psychoactive effects. It could deliver relief immediately and allowed patients to trust their doses based on the immediate effect. The overwhelming preponderance of the evidence that is recorded establishes that marijuana has a currently accepted medical use and treatment in the United States for nausea and vomiting, resulting in chemotherapy treatments in some cancer patients, Young wrote. To conclude otherwise in the record would be unreasonably arbitrary and capricious in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. Young also ruled that marijuana had a currently accepted medical use as a treatment for spasticity caused by multiple sclerosis and other conditions. It would be unreasonable, arbitrary, and capricious to find otherwise, he said. Based on facts established in this record, Young said one must reasonably conclude that there's accepted safety for the use of marijuana under medical supervision. And again, to conclude otherwise on record would be unreasonably arbitrary and capricious. So,
I like that word.
A lot of this word. So, but everything in this article is talking about stuff that we're going back 35 years. Mm-hmm. And this is being talked about, all this stuff. And the DEA just kept on denying it and denying it and denying it. So now we're here, what we talked about on the last episode and where we're going to be at. It's still up to the DEA to get it off the scheduling. When it all comes down to it, on all the articles that I've read in the last, since this was announced, and all the articles we read in the past about Schedule 1 and cannabis should be decriminalized and it should be descheduled and it should go on Schedule whatever. It's a plant. In the end, it's a plant. In the end, it's all about control. In the end, it's all about you not getting to be able to live your life in the freedom of you want to live and the choices you want to live, whether it be cannabis, whether it be food, whether it be alcohol, whether it be cigarettes, whether it be listening to loud music on your own property, whether it be to however you choose to live your life. It's all about control. That's it. It's what it's all about. And as the DEA still stands to not make a decision yet, the Biden administration is doing anything. Okay, they say they're for it, but they still haven't done anything. If they do decide to do anything with it, the Biden administration, it'll be for votes that comes in November. So be careful out there and make sure you read and you listen and you learn and you watch wordage when it comes down to the final time when they're going to deschedule this or do something about this. So what should people keep in mind when using cannabis for sleep? We use cannabis for sleep.
We do.
A lot.
Yeah.
We like it. It helps us sleep.
Cannabis and sleep are great partners. Like most sleep aids, it takes a while to crack the code. Once you do it, you'll be having the most sound night's sleep of your life. Just ask any friend who regularly smokes weed or that person who fell asleep in the middle of a party because the weed they smoked was a bit too relaxing. Anecdotal evidence from people who have trouble sleeping shows how effective cannabis can be, helping users feel relaxed and allowing them to achieve hours of uninterrupted rest. Despite weed's powerful sleep-inducing effects, it's important to understand that the relationship between cannabis and sleep isn't as clear-cut as many believe it is. There are studies that have shown that prolonged cannabis use or abuse can interrupt people's sleep habits and deteriorate them. Here are 7 things you should keep in mind when using cannabis for sleep. THC versus CBD. The answer to this question depends on your approach to sleep. If you want immediate relief, THC is the way to go. It's the compound that has been long linked to better sleep, knocking people out pretty quickly, especially if they don't have much of a tolerance for it. If you're looking for a long-term solution, you should choose CBD. This element could help you battle anxiety and help you feel more relaxed, thus making it more likely for you to get sleep in the future. Dosage. Dosage, along with your level of experience with weed, matters when it comes to using the herb for bed. If you smoke too little, you might feel no effects. If you smoke too much, you might find yourself tossing and turning with weed-induced paranoia. If it's your first time using weed for sleep, try your best to create a relaxing environment and avoid overstimulating yourself with too much screen time or alcohol. Pace yourself with your weed intake and be aware of your body and its cues. That way, you're better equipped to jump into bed once it feels right. Your method of consumption. The way in which you consume weed will affect how fast or intense your reaction might be. If you consume an edible, be sure to give your body a few hours to experience effects. If you're vaping or smoking, there's more control and less planning necessary. Types of cannabis matter also. Whether you're consuming a product that's THC or CBD based, or you're consuming sativas or indicas, it's important to know that all types of cannabis provide different effects. Indicas are the strains that tend to affect the body in relaxing and heavy ways, producing sleepy effects. Still, it doesn't mean that a sativa strain or a hybrid won't make you feel sleepy. This is a trial and error type of substance. Try different options and keep track of what works for you and what doesn't. And weed hangovers. If you're not much of a nighttime weed consumer, the groggy feeling you might experience when you wake up can be puzzling. Although not as strong or common as regular hangovers, weed hangovers do exist. Although not completely understood, these are more likely if you've been consuming low-quality weed. To cope with them, be sure to drink lots of water, eat healthy foods, and monitor your cannabis intake throughout the day. Changes in your sleep and dreams. One of the most noticeable effects that cannabis has on sleep is the lack of dreams. This is due to cannabis limiting your REM sleep, which is the stage of sleep where dreams are likely to occur. Scientific studies have found that REM sleep is important for learning and resting. There's much we don't understand when it comes to the relationship between cannabis and sleep. It's important to monitor your usage and your sleep habits, especially if you feel like the sleep you're having is not restful and good for you. Lastly, it's super important to highlight that cannabis is a very personalized experience. What might work for me may not work for you. This is why we need more research, systems, and processes that can help us better understand the plant.
I have to say this, and we talked about CBN too, about being a sleep aid, not putting you to sleep. I don't know if THC or CBD or any cannabinoids puts me to sleep.
Right.
Like, makes me want to go to sleep. What it does for me is it relaxes me. It clears my mind. It relaxes my body, so I'm just laying there, relaxed and not thinking about anything. And it helps me just feel so comfortably relaxed that I can go to sleep better.
There's been times where you smoke too much, and if you're tired and you're sitting someplace
Oh, it
comfy,
knocks you the fuck out. Yeah. But
you
I mean,
get slumpy or you get couch locked,
right?
And you're not tired, but
you're just totally
zonked.
relaxed.
Yeah. I think too, like as you become more experienced and your endocannabinoid system comes into play, I feel, well, maybe this is all different for everybody. For myself, I like you, Mr. Weedman, I don't feel like weed makes me sleepy. but it does help me sleep.
Yes.
Yeah.
It relaxes my body. It relaxes everything. My backache.
It also helps me garden, and it helps me do laundry, and it helps me. Yeah.
It just depends. We know it's time for bed. We smoke before we go to bed. We eat an edible an hour before we go to bed, and then we smoke a bowl. We smoke a joint, and we go to bed. We watch a little TV, unwind a little bit, and then we go to sleep.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But when it's time to go to sleep, there's no doubt. Like you're just going to sleep.
You know. We're night owls regardless, and when I wake up in the morning, but it's not because of cannabis. My whole life I wake up groggy because I don't want to get up.
Right. Yeah, I maybe like on a night like when we went to the concert the other night where you're like smoking a shit ton and then you've had some edibles too, and then maybe you have more when you get home. You might still like wake up occasionally and be like, "Woo, I think I'm still a little high." That happens. I wouldn't call that a hangover.
No, not at all.
Not great if you have to meet clients in the morning.
I say bonus.
Yeah, well, not if you have a work appointment. That can be rough.
No, I just think it like I said, it makes me relax to where it helps me sleep. It's a sleep aid. It's not like taking a sleeping pill or an Ambien where people wake up and fucking down the street somewhere because they're sleepwalking, you know?
Yeah, naked, right?
Yeah, so that's not what happens with me, you know? But I enjoy cannabis at night because it just puts me where I want to be at. Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians vote to legalize recreational marijuana in North Carolina.
Nice.
The official vote was 2,464 yes, 1,057 no. I am so happy because you'll be in North Carolina where it's not legal yet, and because it's your land and you can grow and sell. And you know what I said on the last couple episodes about this, you can control your own destiny. You don't have to get any money from the federal government and take a handout. Control your own destiny. Start it there where nobody else is doing it. You're going to become very wealthy, and I'm so happy for you. So good for you, Eastern Band of Cherokee, to vote and legalize it. Awesome. Cannabis farmers want to be included in wildfire recovery program, and I think they should because you get tax money, right? California loves that tax money. They should be helped out. First cannabis ads are coming soon to Spotify, and Cresco Labs will be one of the first companies to advertise cannabis on Spotify. And then there was another one, too, I saw a commercial on someone. Dovboy sent me a commercial of a dispo ad on, what was it? What was the TV station? Hold on a second. I'm looking it up real quick. On Sling TV, I think it was. Sling TV. There was a cannabis ad. Look at that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, cannabis ads. Crazy. I like it. A deal for bipartisan banking reform is imminent, says Sherrod Brown. We'll see. Democrat of Ohio is very optimistic about it. We shall see. I've been hearing about this for 10 years. Massachusetts has $5 billion to date since they went rec. $5 billion. And record numbers month over month. August alone did $139.3 million. Yeah, $5 billion. That's a lot of money for Massachusetts. That's good stuff. Illinois Governor Pritzker downplays steep marijuana prices amid growing industry touting sizable sales to visitors from out of state. What about in-state? What about this state here? Why are we paying so much in taxes? Why do we have to pay local governments taxes? You charge for different THC ranges from 20% all the way up to 40%. And you made $600 million, and I still don't understand where the money's going. You're 89% more than the rest of the country when I'm looking at cannabis prices. You're higher. And you tout, and you downplay it. Because your tax rates are so high that companies can't make any money, so of course they got to charge more money. And of course they should be charging a fair price if everybody didn't have to pay all these taxes. You don't deserve any of it. I'll keep on saying that till I'm in my grave. Alabama's cannabis saga, how file size restrictions hurt marijuana licensing applicants. Man, come on, Alabama. This has been going on for a while now. Gummies, yes. Chewables, no. And Pennsylvania Medical Marijuana Advisory Board rules.
Come on. It's the same thing.
It's candy.
That has no relevance
so
on
weird.
the drug.
It's so weird. It's so weird. An Indiana constitutional right to use marijuana. Most of Indiana's neighbors, I've smoked with a lot of people from Indiana. I have a lot of friends in Indiana who I've smoked with. And Indiana smokes a lot of weed. Most of Indiana's neighbors have legalized cannabis, marijuana for recreational use. Illinois, Michigan, even if you like look around some other states, if you go a little further east, you got Ohio. If you go a little further west, you got Missouri. You're stuck in the middle. If you go a little further north, you got Minnesota now. You're being surrounded. The path of decriminalization has most always been through state legislation or voter initiative. But despite the strong public support for decriminalization, legislative efforts in Indiana have gone nowhere. The governor said when it goes federally legal, he will put it on the ballot and vote for it. But Article 1, Section 1 of the Indiana Constitution does not mention privacy, but does broadly protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In 2018, this person argued that the provision should protect from criminal prosecution and possession of a single marijuana blunt by an adult Hoosier who is not operating a vehicle or otherwise affecting anyone. The Indiana Court of Appeals rejected the argument in part because the claim had not first been presented to the trial court. Oh, my God. In the recent ruling, the Supreme Court recently had quite a bit of a say about the fairly robust protection of Article 1, Section 1, and the upholding of Indiana's 2022 abortion ban. The justice wrote Indiana's long history of generally prohibiting abortion as a criminal act, coupled with plaintiffs' acknowledgement that protecting paternal life falls within the state's broad authority to protect the public's health, welfare, and safety, suggests that the common understanding among Article 1, Section 1 framers and ratifiers was that the provisions left the General Assembly with legislative discretion to regulate or limit abortion. Through the same lens of originalism, a challenge to the statute of criminalization of marijuana possession would fare better. Possessions or use of marijuana was not illegal when the 1851 Indiana Constitution was written, or for decades later. Ooh. Although the state may point to concerns about minors or drivers using marijuana, a narrow challenge would take the public health, welfare, and safety concerns mostly off the table. As in Alaska's case referenced above, a veteran who is suffering from PTSD would be an ideal litigant to argue that they should not face jail time for using a substance that decreases the severity of the symptoms. Plaintiffs in the abortion case instead brought a facial challenge to a statute, which is most difficult challenge to mount successfully. If there is at least one circumstance under which the statute can be constitutionally applied, the challenge fails. So, Section 1, Article 1, citizens do not replenish natural rights beyond what the reasonably necessary to secure the natural rights of the broader community. In short, while continuing in the years or decades long legislative tracks to decriminalization reform, advocates should consider bringing narrow court challenges to the marijuana statute. With originalism, like Alaska, the medical evidence of their side, they're having nothing to lose and much to gain. Come on, Indiana. Judge blocks Arkansas ban on Delta-8 THC, other hemp products. Good. You'll soon find weed brownies and THC drinks in New Jersey cannabis dispensaries. About time. Where's the people the most weed bought? Where people buy?
I want you to say that again.
Where buy the people most weed bought? What countries where people buy the most weed?
How about that? The 20. I'm going to give you the 20 countries where people buy the most weed, Mr. Weedman. I got you.
Figured I just want to catch you, see if you were slipping. If you were paying attention.
I'm paying attention.
You paid attention because I said everything wrong. If I would have said it right, you would have been like, all right.
Oh, get it. According to market and consumer data company Statista, revenue in the cannabis market is forecast to reach $47.2 billion this year. Most of that revenue, $32.9 billion, is projected to come from the United States. To identify the 20 countries with the biggest cannabis markets, 24/7 Wall Street reviewed Statista's estimated annual revenue from cannabis sales in 59 countries using data published in November of 22. Sales include retail sales and taxes, encompassing business-to-business as well as business-to-consumer transactions, and using current exchange rates. The cannabis market is divided into three segments: medical, therapeutic, and recreational. The medical and therapeutic areas have been legalized in more countries than recreational use. According to Statista's analysis, therapeutic cannabis use rose during the pandemic, as its use is perceived to help those cope with anxiety, even though research on the matter is limited and health professionals warn the effects are complex and not without risk. Some still look negatively at cannabis as a recreational drug, fearing it leads to more powerful narcotic use. The maturity of the cannabis market varies by country because of differing legal environments and public attitudes toward the product. Even so, the outlook for cannabis is bullish. Legalization means higher tax revenue. The industry is introducing all manner of new products, and there is considerable merger and acquisition activity. According to Statista, in 16 countries, revenue was projected to leap more than 100% from 2022 to 2027. Here's the total 2022 revenue from the top 20 countries actively allowing legal sales. Mexico is at spot number 20 at $106.3 million in sales for 2022. So this is all 2022 sales. 19 is Norway at 106.9 million. Belgium, number 18 at 108 million. Denmark at 110 million. 16 is Turkey at 128 million. Poland comes in 15 at 132 million. Then we have Switzerland for 140 million. Number 13 is Brazil for 151 million. Korea comes in at 12 for, wow, they have a big one, 221 million.
And it's so, just so you all know, Mrs. Weedman's reading, almost all these countries are illegal.
Are illegal?
Illegal, yeah. They're not even recreational.
Oh, so
mostly.
they're somehow tracking the black market and traditional market?
They're figuring out.
I didn't see that part. 11 is Italy with 280 million. Then 10 is France with 284 million. Number 9, Australia, 308 million. Big country. Number 8 is the UK with 346 million.
Totally illegal in the UK, recreational wise, just so you know.
But medical.
Some
they
of
have
these,
medical
yeah,
market.
but their medical market is so strict there. I mean, the UK legalized medical cannabis in 2018, but the program has been criticized because of just shit.
Right.
A lot of this is medical, but
Yes.
it's crazy though. There's all these countries are illegal recreational wise though, and they're still doing that much money.
Yeah. Number 7 is Spain with 652.8 million. 6 is South Africa, $678 million. 5 is Thailand at 819.9 million. 4 is Germany at 873.8 million. And the top 3 are, with a little bit more information, I am going to cover them. Number 3, the Netherlands. $1.0 billion in 2022. Although the country is known to be the European haven for cannabis users due to its tolerance policy towards so-called soft drugs, the cultivation of cannabis is still illegal there. But a pilot program is expected to start by the end of the year and could pave the way toward the full legal sale of cannabis. The Netherlands is the second European country to launch a pilot program to regulate the sale of legal cannabis. They did legalize medical cannabis in 2003. Number 2 is Canada with $3.09 billion in 2022. In 2018, Canada became the second country in the world after Uruguay to legalize marijuana for recreational adult use. Medical cannabis has been legal there since 2001. And number 1, the United States comes in at $27.9 billion for 1 year. The United States, the most populous nation on the list, is by far the most robust market for cannabis consumption. The substance remains federally illegal. The government does not recognize its medical use and considers it a substance of high risk for abuse. Bullshit. Possessing, growing, transporting, and distributing marijuana is a federal felony. However, the U.S. government has chosen not to interfere with states that have legalized cannabis. A total of 41 states, as well as the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, have medical marijuana programs, while 23 have decriminalized cannabis.
Crazy. There's a lot of money in a lot of those in those 20 countries.
I'm surprised to see,
And most of them are medical only, not rec, not decriminalized.
But they're making some movement.
There's
What I didn't realize was in the Netherlands, there's been a lot in the press about them very recently stopping their cafes, the cannabis cafes.
For
And
tourists.
because they want to improve the level of tourism in that area. And here's the interesting thing, because it is not recreationally legal, the cafes that have cannabis, you have to consume on spot. You can't take it to go. And the cannabis is supplied by traditional market growers.
Crazy, right?
Crazy. So they're creating some new system to fix that and try to work around that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
International news. German government anticipates huge windfall with legalization of cannabis. Estimates suggest the approving the consumption and possession of marijuana will contribute to around $5 billion annually to the state's budget. Crazy. That's a lot of monies. The international cannabis trade is booming without the U.S. Guess which countries are buying and importing the most weed? Of course, because the United States can't even go over state lines yet go internationally. I mean, Canada's one, killing it internationally, going back and forth. They are just doing more to go export than the U.S. is even thinking, not even hasn't even a thought about it yet. They are killing the export game right now. And then and a lot of Germany is importing the most flour around the world right now, as you just read about how much money they're making. And a lot of it is from imports. There's Colombia is already shipping thousands of pounds of cannabis to Europe. That's another country doing really well. Canada, 132,000 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not even a lot. I mean, compared to what they're growing.
Well, but it is a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah. South Africa ends arrest for personal cannabis use and possession. Finally. Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. They will no longer arrest people for personal cultivation or possession of cannabis. The South African Police Services issued a new order seeking to clarify confusing legislation in the enactment of cannabis laws in 2018. It's amazing. They're great. Look at them. Nobody's going to get arrested for weed. Police officers allowed to smoke pot when not on the job in Luxembourg. You can smoke when you're off work. Just don't come into work stone.
Come into work with it.
Good job, Luxembourg. Cider. We like a good cider.
We do.
I like apple cider too. Off the apple cider you get from an apple orchard.
When you go to the
it's
orchards.
great. But also a good cider, like a alcohol cider.
I like the apple donuts personally.
You do like the apple. I think that's the reason why you like going to an apple
That's
orchard.
That's why I go to the apple orchard.
And you also eat an apple a day, which keeps the doctor away.
I do. Yeah. So this is a fun story. A century-old New York orchard releases a cannabis-infused apple cider. As each day shortens, the signs of fall settle in. Ugh. Oh, no, I don't mean that. Ugh. I do like fall, but I don't like winter. I kind of like winter. I just don't want to be cold.
That's it.
Yeah,
you love the
that's
snow.
all. Yeah,
you love
do.
looking at the snow when it hasn't been touched.
Oh, it's so pretty. Yeah.
You just
I
don't like
wanna
being
even
cold.
Think about snow right now. All right. As each day shortens, that's happening here. The signs of fall settle in. Green leaves shift to crimson and gold. Evenings get brisk, and apples plump on their tree branches. Beak and Skiff, a 100-year-old apple orchard in central New York, is celebrating the season with Honeycrisp, an infused beverage from its cannabis brand Heirloom. Not spelled like heirloom, it's Ayrloom. The brand grows the apples and weed used in the recipe. Pretty cool. Beak and Skiff apples are at the center of everything we do here at the orchard, Eddie Brennan, Heirloom president, shared with Green State in an email. Our family grows, hand trims, and harvests over 350,000 heirloom apple trees every fall season. We still use many of the same genetics that our great-great-grandfathers passed down to us. Honeycrisp is a light-dose edible designed for social enjoyment. Each can contains 5 milligrams of THC and 5 milligrams of CBD. The drink is enjoyed cold from the fridge or heated into a mulled cider, making it ideal for the fall season. Beak and Skiff began shipping cannabis drinks to licensed New York dispensaries in December of 2022, alongside the brand's gummies, balms, tinctures, and vapes. They hold the title of being the first infused drink brand in the state. The Heirloom operation is built for the future New York cannabis industry. The factory can run 250 cans per minute, equating to 25 million units yearly. With New York retail licenses halted by a discrimination lawsuit, the orchard will have time before hitting production capacity. Until then, they will push forward, researching new products. Each of the 25-plus apple varieties on our 5th generation 1,000-acre orchard is special, but the Honeycrisp apple is especially popular. The sweet, crisp, and juicy variety inspires thousands of people to visit our award-winning orchard each year. The orchard also has an alcohol brand called 911 Established. Their cannabis beverage Heirloom is available in dispensaries throughout New York, and you can grab the new seasonal Honeycrisp or the signature line of flavors, including pink grapefruit, pineapple mango, black cherry, and lemonade. And for those living outside of New York State, you can enjoy the brand's CBD line, which is now available nationwide. It seems safe to say that apple season has arrived, especially on this cool Chicago night. So before you go hopping on that pumpkin spice train, maybe it's time to try an infused cider.
I want to try one of their ciders.
I do too.
I love cider.
Yeah.
Whether it be alcohol or non-alcoholic ciders. I mean, like I said, go to the apple orchard and get yourself a gallon of that cider. You drink that within like 2 days because it's so good and so just delicious, you know.
And Honeycrisp is my favorite apple.
That is your fave.
You know, gotta just try
I remember
it.
the first time you tried a Honeycrisp too. You were like,
It was like a game changer.
What a wonderful world.
Yeah, the world opened, before me.
Oh, shit. I've talked about Ricky Williams, former football player, running back, with his cannabis use, his cannabis brand. But ex-NFL star Ricky Williams says the league is moving in the right direction by loosening its stance on cannabis in recent years. He's hoping Roger Goodell's organizations goes one step further by allowing teams to treat players with marijuana after games. Ricky, who was suspended 5 times and missed a chunk of his career for violating the league's substance and policy, believes society is going through a big transformation when it comes to accepting the benefits of cannabis and psychedelics, and he's hoping the NFL follows suit. The NFL changed its policy in 2021, elected to only test players once a year and handing down less punishment if someone is popped for cannabis. Ricky is thrilled with the league's changed stance on cannabis, but feels it would have a great benefits for players if they were encouraged to use it instead of pills during recovery. I think the next step, though, is at the end of the game, if we're on the plane ride home, the trainer is walking down the aisle and has 2 capsule cases, one of Ambien and the other of one of Vicodin, Williams said. He's walking down the aisle and saying, do you need any of this? Do you need any of this? Ooh, that sucks. And the truth is, for football players who do need something because it hurts and you're all revved up and it's hard to calm down to go to sleep, and I love to see cannabis as being one of those things that trainers walking down the aisle and offering to those players. Ricky, who legally changed his name to Eric Mirren recently, has been an advocate for the cause for decades and is outspoken on the positive effects cannabis has had on mental health throughout his career. Now he has his own brand. It's going strong. He's doing well. We have an authentic message for people growing some really amazing flower that can really help people to feel better, he added. If we can be a person that can make that connection on the cannabis side, that feels great to us. He has been a huge advocate for cannabis as long as I've watched his career. I think he smoked throughout, I think he smoked forever. And he went to college, University of Wisconsin-Madison, and he won a Heisman Trophy Award too. Oh, wow. Phenomenal running back, but fought for cannabis and, he got suspended a lot for it,
right?
But he touts his cannabis use. He doesn't hide from it.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I'm glad he's fighting for players in the NFL to get the help they need, especially when they get concussions and all that stuff, because I have concussion syndrome, and that's what helps me.
That's right.
So, but yeah, good for you, Ricky Williams. Ms. Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
That's the end of the show.
It is.
We're going to smoke some more weed?
I think it's time.
I think it's time. And what else are you going to get?
A snack.
A snack.
Thinking about what I'm going to have.
Got anything else to say?
Everybody have a great week. Stay well. Mr. Weedman, it's all you.
Everybody out there in the world, we love you. Thanks for listening. Make sure you check out 8decades.com. Go see Mrs. Weedman's baby. It's awesome. Check us out on there. Say hello. Got some new slaps we're going to be releasing soon, too, the Grow Hour slap. So check it out on 8decades.com. We love you all out there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all the DMs and all the love. And thanks for all the fun stuff you send me. I appreciate you all out there. We love you. As Paulie always says, smoke smart. Puff, puff, and away.
Puff, puff, pass.
Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.